think about when you download a game and you download a modern AAA title, it's 120 gigabytes, right?
You're downloading the compiled.
That's the optimized version. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now imagine you have to figure out how do I get the latest version of all of the assets when each asset might be tens of megabytes.
You pull down the game project and it's 7 terabytes, you know?
Butterscotch.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 476 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam and I'm a miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm the artist.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is July 12th, 22x4. Now, before we go any further, there's going to be profanity in this show, so get ready for that. And we'd also like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. Thank you so much for your monthly donations to help keep this podcast going. Well, I'm proud of you guys. We made it straight through that intro. I could see they're both vibrating, just like wanting to jump in there, but we got through it.
Honestly, I kind of spaced out a little bit, so I didn't even realize it was happening.
That's a good strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, I started thinking about some like Crashlands 2 stuff or something. I was thinking about like some demo questions. It's just like all of a sudden my brain was just completely somewhere else.
Just gone.
That was my bad. I meant to interrupt you, but I just like couldn't get my shit together.
That's fair. I wish there was like a verbal version of a QR code that we could use, so I could just be like that, and then it would, that would just link people to the intro if they want it, if they want to see it or hear it. But otherwise, we could just
some Neuralink, optimizations we can make once everybody has.
Yeah, but we would have to kill so many monkeys to do that, which is great. I think we should do it.
I gotta say, monkeys have grown on me over time.
I actually do like them.
You should get that checked out.
I mean, it's for the bit, Adam. Just
the thing is, but I can't throw monkeys under the bus. It just seems.
Well, if you're Elon Musk,
we're not suggesting that. We're just talking about doing horrible experiments on them.
Just punching holes in their brains. And
don't bring a bus into this.
Yeah,
that's no problem.
More of a slow, agonizing death than like a bus-related death. I feel like you could do that.
Totally ethical and different.
Yeah.
All right, now Sam, you've got some kind of story.
I want to talk about toddlers. Okay,
those who toddle.
Mine, yes, who is now 16 months old. Okay,
60.
Not 60, 16.
Wait, I have a question before you keep going. What's the number of months before you stop using months?
When developmentally, it wouldn't matter to differentiate between months. That's the reason parents talk about it. Because it's like literally the changes month to month are so insane,
So if you've been a parent, then you kind of get that in your brain of like, the milestones. But if you haven't been a parent, then people are like,
correct. So
my child is 24 or 26 months. And then you're like,
parent,
just say
I know
2.
what that means.
Just say 2 years old.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it is about who you're talking to, because it's essentially technical jargon is actually what it is.
Yeah. Right? It's parent jargon.
Parent jargon. So yeah, 16 months is like around the time where language starts really ramping, and depending on the baby, some of them start having a lot of opinions, about stuff. Ugh. And this one's has always had infinite opinions about things, frankly. But one of the things that's been kind of comedic is because her level of interaction with the world and her command of it has been going up. Then just yesterday, I had this experience where I was like, I want somehow to inhabit the kind of confidence that is just naturally sprung up in this insane little toddler, because she puts on this blue dress in the morning, okay? Looks herself in the mirror, and it's just like, blah, loves it, okay? That's blue, okay? Blah. Turns around, marches out her little room, across the hall where her grandma is sleeping. Basically, Kool-Aid Man kicks the door in, essentially. I mean, using her hands, but essentially. And then goes, night-night, which is grandma. And then yells, cookie! She's basically like, look at my cool dress and give me a cookie. And it was just the most insane, just self-possessed, not a care for anyone else. And I was like, honestly?
Hell yeah.
Give me a little bit of that. I feel like as an adult, especially nowadays, you're always you're just thinking about,
you're too accommodating.
Yeah, gotta be conscientious to everybody all the time, and just seeing this toddler be an absolute maniac, just kind of inspiring, Yeah,
you're like, look, I understand that you're sleeping and you got your own thing going on, but the thing is, look how cool I am, and I want a cookie. So you're in my world now.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it's the same thing with like anything cute enough, you know?
Anything cute, you can get away with a lot, man.
Get away with some bullshit. Cause that is, I mean, that is honestly some bullshit, you know, on the other side of it. But it is hilarious and also endearing. And because it's adorable, you're just like, well, I guess I'm just awake now. Getting you a cookie,
And again,
you know?
because it's a toddler and, developmentally, they literally don't have the capacity to consider other things. That's not even in there yet. So it's like, versus if an adult does that, you're like, how would you think this is
What's
okay?
wrong with you?
Yeah. But with a toddler, you're like, I know you literally can't even think about this in a way that comes close to glancing on that idea of there being an okayness to interrupting someone. And so it just becomes very amusing.
So you just got to roll with it.
Yeah. I don't know. I was like, it's nice.
Yeah. Now,
Confidence.
Speaking of confidence, I learned some things about confidence over this past week and a half. So I don't think I've mentioned this on the podcast, but I've been doing laser hair removal stuff.
And you got to put the hyphen in the right place. It's laser space hair dash removal, right? It's not laser.
Yeah,
hair.
I'm keeping my laser hairs.
Yeah, getting rid of the other hairs.
I'm using lasers to get rid of my non-laser hairs. And so I started doing this a couple of months ago, but it takes a long time. So you got to do eight sessions with like 8 weeks between sessions. And so I'm still kind of in the early stages of it. I've only done a couple of sessions, but it's already the case that like when I went to the gym in the past, I had hairy legs, hairy arms, blah, blah, blah. And so like the way I dressed, I just kind of like threw stuff on because I never thought to myself, like, my legs look good. Right? That thought never occurred to me because I'm like, my legs are super hairy. I don't like it.
That's the first thing you see. Yeah.
I would say, Seth, you have a hairier than just average. Not crazy, but like
it's not like a beaver pelt, but it's it was something.
It's robust.
And there's a lot of things that come with that too. Like now that I'm getting rid of it, I'm learning about lotion. Because I don't have to use a whole bottle to just get one arm lotion.
Because it just soaks up because you get your hair really nicely lustrous.
Yep.
You know,
oh yeah,
but yeah, your skin the
skin doesn't get it. You know, So it's like there's all these really interesting things that I'm kind of like able to do or think about that I never really noticed before. But one of the things that's happened that's like kind of the big highlight is that going to the gym then, now that I feel like, hey, my legs don't look so crazy now, then now I feel weird wearing these like big baggy kind of crappy looking shorts and stuff that like I always wore. And I'm looking around like there's so many people at the gym who actually have fashion. Like they're going to the gym looking and they're looking put together, but in like an athletic way, right? So like they purposely
they're out in the world. Yeah.
They're out in the world. And so, and especially like women's gym clothes, they have tons of really good looking options of like tops that have all kinds of cool things going on, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get in on this. I want to do this.
Men's fitness fashion.
Yeah. So, I hop on Amazon and I order like 5 different kinds of like shorts, and I've never worn tank tops before either. So I'm like, oh, let's do this. Let's get some of that stuff.
Oh, yeah, I probably haven't since high school. Like in high school, I did a lot of like wearing stuff in the gym, because I was trying to get my muscles big and all that kind of stuff. But never since then.
Since then I've never done it. And part of that is like, well, if you start developing patches of back hair, you're like, maybe I'll cover that shit up. But once you laser blast it, then it's like, hey, this is fine now.
Yeah, well, it is a teach their own thing, right? Because like some people like hair on themselves.
It's all about what you like about your own.
I'm in the same camp where I don't like my hair either, so I've just always trimmed it short all the time, and I'm also getting some of it lasered now because I just don't.
Because you just don't want it there. Yeah. So you gotta own your truth, right? Like if you want to be hairy, be hairy. If you don't want to be hairy, then don't be hairy.
But in either case,
it's all about confidence, right?
And it's about taking care of it. If you're hairy, fucking make that shit lustrous, like make it.
Yeah, shampoo that thing.
Condition it.
Condition that arm hair. Yeah, and so what I kind of found then was like, so I tried some stuff and I've ended up getting like an actual gym attire that I like, that also I feel like interesting. I've got shorter shorts now than I've ever worn in my life. And suddenly I'm pumped about leg day because I can actually see my legs and I can see the progress that I'm making. Where in the past it was like a baggy sail covering a hairball, and that was kind of like what I was looking at. And I've gone up so fast in all my lifts over the past few weeks, just because I'm now
look
like
cooler while you're at the gym.
I look cooler at the gym. I feel better.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about going there because I just feel better when I'm there versus like just kind of going there and slogging through it. It's like, that confidence thing is just really can't be overstated. Just how much it kind of changes.
It's huge.
But also the idea of like, because style actually just is confidence, right? It's the intentional choice making, right? Because you look at people
to say I'm going to look good today.
Yeah, because you can take somebody like, I think Billie Eilish is a really good example of like, every time I see anything she's wearing, I'm like, that's insane. But also, she is pulling it off, because.
But how is she so cool while looking so crazy?
And it's because it was a choice. It was a specific intentional choice, and that's also why I don't like things like companies having like, here our dress policy is you wear these specific kinds of things rather than just having the blanket like be put together, right?
Decide what you're going to wear on purpose.
Decide, like have some intentionality to it, and if you do that, like that's what style is. It makes you feel better.
And literally, like up to this point in my life, I have never gone to the gym or exercised with intentionality of what I looked like ever. Right. It was always just like, I got these like 12-year-old shorts still that mostly don't have holes in them. Let's go. Right. It's like, what? Why? Just because I'm going to get sweaty, why would I not give a fuck about that? When I would care about that in every other context.
Yeah, I think to your point, though, it's like if there's something about essentially just your natural state, in this case, like just the extra hairiness associated with showing your legs, basically, or whatever.
Yeah.
That makes it so just kind of
you just think, what's the point?
Yeah, like that's one of those things that's kind of in the way of that opening up as a thing for you.
I think there's also an important sort of indicator, confidence indicator note here, because when we were growing up as millennials, when we wore shorts. At the time that we were wearing shorts, you were only allowed to wear big ass, long ass.
Yep.
They went down halfway down your shins.
Yeah, they're down your shins. You're just fucking swimming in them, right? And like those are the shorts that we were allowed to wear, unless we wanted to be, punched to death on the playground or whatever. And so having grown up with that's what you're allowed to wear, and anything else, therefore, because that gets deep into your brain, So being able to come back to that, 20 years later, and just put on some short shorts and go to the gym. This is pretty.
I'm pissed because I'm missing out. Because like now I'm like, how short can I go with these bad boys? So
pretty short.
I ordered some and I was like, these are like halfway down my thigh, but can we go shorter?
So I'm a menace. Slowly,
I'm on a journey. I love it. Yeah, but like there's so many people are at the gym wearing stuff that is so unbelievably skin tight or revealing or short that it's like, all right, who cares? It's like, and also good for them, because if they've been in the gym working their asses off and like developing a good physique, and they're like, I want to show it off, right? And it's like,
whatever, go for it.
Why not?
Yeah.
So it's been a pretty interesting journey for me. I'm learning about skincare. I'm learning about fashion.
That's great.
I'm getting gains. Oh, what a good time.
Yeah,
what a payoff.
I will say with the skincare versus hair thing, like that is for me like one of the main reasons was like because a million years ago when we were in high school doing swimming, and then we would have to shave before our meets, right, to like get streamlined, which I'm pretty sure now today I'm like, I doubt that really did much, but it felt like it did. So it had a really important,
confidence boost, actually.
Confidence boost effect. Because you just felt like you were fucking slipping through the water.
You feel like a torpedo.
Yeah, it is very fun, but it only does that for the first few times until you get used to it, right?
And it only really works if you if you had body hair.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But then you really feel it.
Which
feels
I did.
Like you're going faster. So. But ever since then, I actually just liked having that gone so much that I've like just tried to keep it always short. But the biggest thing though was lotioning It was like
you can actually use lotion.
So good to put lotion on my bare ass skin, that I was like, oh, like you don't get to have that when you're covered in hair, And even when I started shaving my head, which again, like I did for other reasons, because it was back when Sam was sick and I was, solidarity, head shave, right? And I was like, wait a second, I could put lotion on the top of my head, and I did that for the first time, and I was like, there's no way I can go back. I can't go back to that. It's so nice.
But it does make me wonder how, because like things are culturally gendered in our world, where it's like, oh yeah, like caring about skincare and lotion and, cosmetics and stuff is gendered female culturally for us, right? Mm-hmm. And like straight men especially are like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't give a fuck about that. They'll throw on their backwards baseball cap and they'll get up and they'll shower every 3 days, right?
Get crusty.
Yeah. And it's like, I have to wonder how much of...
You got to lotion. You got to be doing this stuff.
Yeah. But like, it's hard to exfoliate like when you have a beard, right? Like there's all these things that kind of, I feel like we've backwards rationalized that like, oh, like men do this and women do this, when it's really more probably like some things are easier for people depending on their propensity to have certain body types or different things going on with their body. Mm-hmm. Like if you're generally hairier, then lotion is fucking hard to use, right? And so you're gonna instead be like, nah, lotion's for girls, right? And you're like just kind of tough it out and pretend like you're psyched about being a dry, itchy man.
It's a both thing. I do still think it's more patriarchy and it's hate for women that drives it, because anything that seems at all feminine, men are trained to flee from at all costs. I think but what I'm saying is that idea that there, like, but it gets reinforced by also the reality of like, it also is, if you got hair all over your face and you're trying to do a face skin care routine,
there's natural challenges.
There's also some other, there's also some natural challenges there too.
Yeah. But these things kind of reinforce, right? Like if you can't get into that side of things, then also, or like I was talking about my legs, right? Like I never wear shorts, just period. Like I would always just wear jeans and everything like that. And part of it is because, well, like I was saying, I didn't like how it looked, right? And if you've got this certain thing going on like that you feel like it's going to like undercut whatever attempts you make to try to dress differently or look good or whatever, then there's a propensity to kind of like get into a rut and then just kind of give up, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're just like, I'm just a backwards baseball cap, baggy t-shirt, baggy pants guy, right? And that's just kind of your thing.
Watching any of those makeover shows for this reason, because again, it's, you could see the difference of that confidence boosting approach of the style stuff makes on any one of these people typically, where it's like they've been dressed in a certain way for a long time or whatever else, but they're just not really happy kind of with how stuff's going, and then they get a little bit of a kind of education and get to make some choices about how they actually want to look. Someone helps them kind of craft that little persona essentially. And then you see them walk around, they're bigger.
Just a different person.
It's really nice to see. So.
It opens up all these options that you didn't realize that you actually would look good in these different things, whatever. You've just kind of settled, it's kind of, it's a good thing to do. Kind of try to do something every now and then to hit a reset button on how you're thinking about those things and make some changes. So, now before we get into questions, there's one kind of fun studio thing I want to talk about, which is optimizations.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about the Game Changer. It's our internal tool that we use to add content and to edit content in Crashlands 2. And it's also a generic tool that we plan on bringing forward into the next game as well. And it's a no-code thing. So it's an interface that people on the team can use without writing any code to add stuff to the game. So one of the tricky parts about the Game Changer is that it contains everything. Right now we just surpassed 5,000 motes. We call each blob of data a mote. So a mote could be the player character, a tree, a weapon, an ability, a creature. Like it could be anything. It just kind of describes something that's going into the game.
Named after like a dote.
Like a dust mote.
Dust mote. I couldn't get that out. It was like a dote
must.
A dust mote.
So the Game Changer, it's our way of dealing with this data, where we've got motes, which are blobs of data, and then we've got schemas, which are rules about how that data gets put together. So like a creature has a schema that describes what all the different things a creature can have in it, whether it's like combat information or what's it called or animations, right? So that's what's in the schema. And then each creature has its own mote that follows the rules of the schema. So then when we set up this data, there's this step that we have to take for getting it actually playable in the game, which is the hydration step. That's where we take it from just like a raw blob of variables and
a little
numbers.
dusty, desiccated skeleton of a data blob.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you think about it, like if you saw a 3-body problem, where all the people would dehydrate, right? And like they're just like they got all the parts of a person,
but they're not a person yet. Yeah.
But they're all like dried out and they don't have the water in them, so they can't do anything.
Gotta fill with juice.
Yeah. So there's some extra stuff that you've got to put in there in order to make it functional. And so that's what the hydration step is. So we take all that data, we hydrate it. Well, when you got 5,000 motes, and when the hydration step also involves like linking them together in different ways, checking dependencies, looking for loops. For example, we don't want it to be the case that a quest gives you an item but requires that item for the quest to be started, because now you've got a loop and you can't do it, right? And so we have to check for those things in hydration and all of that. So hydration kind of takes some time. And we now have, what are we like 4,100 something game changer commits?
Yeah.
And that hydration step, if that takes like 30 seconds, let's say, well, then those 4,000 game changer commits are going to take 2,000 minutes total, right? Which is, I don't know how many hours, a shitload, right?
30 hours? That can't be right. 10 hours is 600 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 30 hours.
Yeah. And it's even worse than that, because something that I'm sure we've all experienced is if you're doing something on your computer and then you hit a progress bar, a loading bar, and it's taking a while. What do you do? You don't just sit there and be like, I'll just sit here and do nothing and wait and be ready to pounce when this loading bar is up. No, what you do is you go grab a snack, or you alt tab, or you kind of go off and do something else. Yeah. And so if something takes longer than just like 5 or 10 seconds, there's a good chance that it actually takes 2 or 3 minutes. Yep. Right? Just because you'll leave and come back. So we always try to kind of aggressively optimize those load times out wherever we can.
And you hit a lot of them, to be clear, when you're working on game changer work, because essentially the cycle is, let's say I'm working on a new resource or something. So I make the resource, I import it using Stitch. So all that's happening externally. I boot the game. So now I got the game's boot time. The game then has to load and do all this hydration stuff when it opens. So players have seen this screen, which is like a juice box and Flux kind of holding on to the crashing escape pod as the loading bar goes, right? Then you hit the main menu. You got to go into the game changer, which itself will do some checks at that moment, and also has to load now essentially like all 5,000, all that stuff into an interface. So that takes a fucking second. Then you make your changes, and that's all just kind of fast, while you're clicking around. But if I want to commit something, so in other words, I want to say, okay, I'm done with my changes. I'm going to send these to the rest of the team and make this canon. Go to the commit tab, and then I hit commit, and now it's got to do some other stuff to like double check things and then fully upload it to the server. Also check with the server to say, has anybody uploaded something in the meantime since I came in here, that I need to pull down, double check before we can commit, etc. So there's actually a lot of these points where loading is kind of what you're doing, right? And as the game's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, the total amount of time that can be eaten up by those loads gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And so we always end up having to ask the question every so often, being like, hey, this is now taking a long time. Is there something we could do? Can we look at it again and check that out, right? And so I think it was just yesterday then, Seth, what we were able to do with this stuff.
Yeah, so a couple things. One is when somebody's making a commit, so they've made their changes in the game changer and they want to upload those changes so that other people can pull them down, right? I cut that from, I think it was previously taking something like 40 seconds or something. Mm-hmm. So I cut 15 seconds off of it yesterday. Mm-hmm. So
huge.
That on its own, if we make like over the next 1,000 game changer commits, it's going to save us like 4 hours, right? But again, a lot more than 4 hours because of the wandering off during long load times, problem. So there's that. And then I also managed to cut the object hydration time down by 25%. So, and like all these things that like they're done because they seem small.
Yeah, you're like, can you just wait a couple more seconds?
Yeah. So all of the hydration now went from, so in the past, I think it was maybe 6 months ago or something, the hydration step was taking something like 15 to 17 seconds. Did a bunch of optimizations back then, and nowadays it was taking about 7.5 seconds, and I managed to get it down to 5. Okay, so and the thing is, like, this seems dumb because anybody who's used Unity or Unreal Engine is sitting there going, I would pay $1 billion fucking dollars to have that kind of a load time, because like we've talked with like the Fat Bard who works on our audio stuff. They work with other studios who use other engines, and they're like, when we work on an Unreal Engine game on a big one, like you're talking like 20-minute plus boot times to like get all the assets compiled and brought into the game. And it's like, I wouldn't do it. I would do anything to get out of that, you know?
Never done it. You wonder why it's with these larger studios, when they ship a game, you come to realize that like people haven't played it that like internally, there's not a lot of play testing happening from devs.
Because they can't.
Because it takes 20 fucking minutes.
But also the infrastructure teams like that are doing the stuff that they have to do. Because they're also like, so like if you're looking at something like Unreal Engine, you're probably using Perforce instead of Git as your version management tool, right? And it's the combination. Basically, that's better suited because of like that's just the sheer size of the assets and stuff that you're using in a Unreal game. But it's like the combination. So that's like a centralized system versus the decentralized system that Git is, right? But the shit that people have to do, because they're managing, like, think about when you download a game and you download a modern AAA title that's 120 fucking gigabytes, right?
You're downloading the compiled.
That's the optimized version. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now imagine you have to like figure out like, how do I get the latest version of all of the assets when each asset might be tens of megabytes.
You pulled out the game project and it's 7 terabytes. You know?
It's bigger than everybody's like hard drive, right? And so like the amount of infrastructure you have to do to manage that, where you're like pulling down only exactly what you need, trying to find out how to like do just only get the changes, the difference between like coming back after a few weeks of like break or something and getting everything running again, and how much like all that stuff, the amount of hardware management you're doing is enormous.
Well, crazy.
But then also like if you haven't found ways, and like to Unreal's credit, my understanding, I've never used it. My understanding of it is that it's aware of this problem, right? And so it has lots of things in it that you can use to like make things happen more live, distribute things better, and that kind of stuff. So that if you really know like the ins and outs of it, you can do a lot of stuff to mitigate just how like big and slow everything is. But if you don't know how to do that, and presumably it's got limits too, right? Then you're just spending all of your time waiting and deleting stuff from your hard drive. Like those are your two activities. You're just like you're basically doing.
Yeah. So yeah, it might seem trivial then to be like, okay, we went from 7 seconds to 5 seconds. But again, like the hydration step happens in concert with other steps. So you're talking like, okay, we cut a few seconds out of this other part of like getting into the game, cut a few seconds off of the hydration part of that, right? Also, and then maybe shaved a few seconds off this other thing too. And it ends up being that you cut like a third of the time off, and you end up more so in a position where if someone's rapidly iterating on something, right, then they don't have, just from moving back and forth between essentially data management on the game changer side to like the workshop or whatever, where they're testing stuff, you cut out so much back and forth time in those little moments that it ends up like just clearing people's heads a bunch. And I think, Adam, you called this the hot path or something.
Yeah, there's like a term. Yeah, the hot path is like it's the same idea as like the golden path, right? Where it's like, but golden path is like the intended best case scenarios, like the idea of that. So it's like a design.
It's like a
concept,
player experience term.
Yeah, player experience or how a person goes to their website or whatever. And then a hot path is the idea of like the path through the code that is extremely active. Right, is
everyone touches it?
A hot path, yeah. People are just touching it all.
Or is there like a function that gets called, 3 million times during the loading process, and it's like if we could speed that thing up just a little bit, then everything gets faster.
Yeah, you got to focus on the hot path, and for like anytime you're doing this kind of stuff where you're like bouncing back and forth between interfaces, closing and reopening the game, all that kind of stuff, like. It's the loading sequence, right? It's like that's, and every player also has to deal with it every time they put up the game, right? Like that.
Granted, theirs is a lot faster because they're not using.
They're doing way less stuff, but it's still like it all impacts that stuff, But also, this makes me think of one of my long-standing pet peeves about making tools, which is there's an old XKCD. I can't remember the exact details of it, but it's like making fun of the idea that a programmer will spend 10 hours saving 5 minutes, right? By figuring out how to solve a thing forever. But in total, and we're talking about this kind of here too. Like
Yeah, so basically took like 4 to 8 hours to do a thing that'll save everyone at least 4 to 8 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in direct time.
Let's just say that that's how the math worked out, right? Because it's roughly like that anyway, right? And it's really easy to look at that from like a management perspective.
Just from a pure numbers time.
Pure numbers of time perspective, and just say like, obviously that's a waste of time. You're just trading one thing for the other, or you're wasting time because all that time spent optimizing, you don't get back, right? And that can be true and is often true when you make tools or when you're dealing with optimization problems and stuff, is that the time spent to reduce the time cost it doesn't look like a fair exchange, right, on the surface. But time spent is kind of like, I think about the same thing too with like statistics about like things that can happen to people, and it's always focused on death, but never talks about like injury, you know? It's like only focused on a very narrow set of outcomes and ignores all the rest of it. Because if you only care about like how many people die when I do X, right? And that's the only thing I care about. Like what if 100% of people are horribly injured, but only 1% die, right? But you only talk about the death statistic, right? Like,
right. So you're saying like it's not a binary outcome. Like there are really bad outcomes, but there's also still quite bad outcomes.
There's lots of other stuff or lots of good outcomes. Right? There's lots of stuff that happens when you make a change. And when you make a change to optimization, basically like what you guys are describing is everyone's experience using the thing is dramatically improved.
So they use it more.
Use it more. They're less stymied by it, right? They're likely to make more like that one final tweak where you're like, it's going to be such a pain in the ass to like get back in there to make that change. Is now more likely to happen, right? So the end result gets just a little, like everything just gets a little bit better, and everyone has everyone has a significantly better experience, so that the end result is disproportionately improved in an unmeasurable way.
Yes.
By the measurable improvement in that one fucking metric. And when you get too obsessed with the time metric rather than the quality of the time.
The experience.
Yeah.
And the actual experience of the time, then that's when you start making bad decisions. And you can make the bad decisions still in both directions, because if all you're doing is saving time and nothing else and it has no other impact or whatever, then that's a fair time to be like, well, if that's literally the only consequence, that's an input for
right now.
Yeah, exactly.
like if this optimization took me 2 weeks, it wouldn't have been worth it.
Yeah.
We would have lost too much of other stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But it took me an afternoon, which hell yeah.
But if it would take 2 weeks, but then you did it 2 years ago, it might be worth it again, right? And
that's essentially what the game changer was at its outset, right? It was exactly. Hey, if we take 6 months, I think we can save basically infinite time, right?
Yeah. We think we can get our 6 months back very quickly, but also, and just as importantly, the experience of making the game would just be infinitely better. So that even if it also just took 6 months longer to make the game, if that was also the outcome, if every single day was a 10 times better development experience, right? Then it doesn't, and we're able to afford the extra 6 months, you know, if that's how it actually works. Right? If we could afford it, then that was the right decision that way too, you know?
This also makes me think of the CPU versus GPU question, because we're a small team. We are a CPU.
Do one thing at a time.
Pretty much we do one thing at a time, and however long that thing takes, that's how long it takes, right? So like if Sam, Jen, and I are the content team and we're building the content for Crashlands 2, and Anne now as well, right? Then that's 4 people doing stuff. And so we could technically ignore the optimization parts and keep everything really slow for everybody and just double the team, just add 4 more people. So we have more things happening badly, but in parallel. So at the end of the day, you get the same amount of stuff done. It's just everybody kind of had a really slow, bad time doing it, right? So that's kind of
you have more people having a bad time is one, and that's
certainly an approach.
It's also like kind of the classic approach to scale.
I mean, when I hear about teams with 400 people on them building games, and I'm just like, I'm assuming that most of those people are spending almost all that time waiting, because there's no other way that you could have 400 people working on something simultaneously and actually aggressively adding stuff to it in a way that wouldn't just implode.
Yeah, waiting or wrangling the overhead of their
business. Yeah, like most of those people
waiting or doing communications.
Yeah, most of those people aren't doing anything at any given time or can't do anything at any given time. And then just every now and then they finally get to move something forward because they've gone through all the requisite meetings and loading bars, and they've took a whole week to get the 7 terabytes onto their machine.
But, but a lot of this has to do also with stack ownership of your tech, right?
Yeah.
Which is like most companies are just, you're not like, even if you, let's say you built a small subset of tools for you to help out, like the primary thing that would be slowing your shit down is like essentially Adam's point about Unreal. It's something about how like this giant engine works that you cannot like meaningfully shift the architecture of that in a way that would better suit your organization.
And maybe you can if you really have like the people and the time to throw at it, right? But
that's like you own it basically.
Yeah, you're basically Unreal at that point, right? Pretty much.
Yeah. So I think that's part of it is where we moved into with a lot of it is like the places where we know we don't have that kind of tech stack ownership, which is to say like Game Maker. Like we can be able to build extensions so we're blue in the face about it, whatever else, but we are not able to make direct engine changes. So we essentially built this little ecosystem of tools between Stitch for VS Code and the Game Changer that allow us to essentially bypass needing to use it, right, as the direct thing so that we could have more of the experience that we want. And it's only really when we moved into that space that you can have these conversations. Because otherwise, yeah, you're hard limited by the thing that's coming off the shelf that you don't have really much control over. And that is where it's like it does only make sense typically to be like, let's just get another person because there's no other mechanism by which we could possibly speed this
Each
up.
person has a hard speed limit that can't be changed.
Yeah.
If the tool is really slow and if you can't change the tool. So you're right. The only move then is to just add more slow people.
Yep.
So that you can, once they do get past the loading bars and whatever, then four people can do what one person could have done if that person didn't have to wait around the whole time. So it's an interesting problem that I hadn't really thought about in terms of whenever we talk about these companies that have huge numbers of people. It's like Larian, who made Baldur's Gate 3, had 400 people work on that game for 7 years. Right. And all around the world and all that stuff. I don't know how many actual developers, but the number that I saw them say was, I think they had a 400 person team kind of overall. And so again, like I always, until kind of recently, I always pictured them having like pretty good tools and all that stuff, but mostly just like there's a big administrative burden over having that many people. And those people have to spend a lot of time in meetings and kind of like syncing up and all that, which is definitely going to be true. But something I hadn't thought about was that part of the reasons you would need that many people is because your tools are so cumbersome that it's just kind of hard for a given person to actually meaningfully move things forward, right? And so you just keep adding more. Again, it's the GPU model. You just add more small processors that can barely do anything, and then eventually you get a picture out of it. You know,
and it is a circular problem, right? Because if you don't have, if the kind of problem that you're solving is like really big and the tools that you currently have at your disposal aren't well suited to the scale of the thing, especially if the scale is so big that having lots of people does actually help, because like you're just like, we just need 100 fucking stories, detailed stories, and we know the big picture, so we have an approach where we could turn loose 10 teams on this, right, or whatever, right? It's like it's possible to like conceive of such a thing where it makes sense to where the scale of the problem matches the scale of the organization and that kind of thing, and the tools ability to allow all these teams to deliver are going to be one of the factors at play about like how many people do you need, how efficient can they be, all that kind of stuff. But as you also scale up, you will be constantly absolutely straining to the ends of capability all of the tools that you're using and all the processes that you're using. So you get the circular feedback loop where it's like, well, how do you solve that? Well, you can readdress the tools again, hire more people again. If you hire more people again, you make the problem worse. It's like everybody keeps getting less efficient and capable.
But even because of the Jevons paradox stuff, even if it's the case that you improve just like the tooling, as we've talked about many times in the podcast, the overall like the internal architecture of how your studio produces a playable game, the bottlenecks and the kind of work pathways in there, as tools improve, will just kind of shift around a bit, where it's like it's no longer
new problems.
You end up with new problems. And so it's this weird thing where it's like, because essentially because of taking that 6 months to make the Game Changer, while it then took another like year and some change on Seth's side of like very intense programming, essentially finishing the systems, like the really core, all of the systems of the game. At this point, Seth's actually able to move fully into content dev, like fully, right? Yep. But what's weird about that is that Seth's actually in a position now where he has to wait on the art to get done because the art can only happen so fast, right? And I'm talking about like in art asset, like a thing you couldn't really, there's no way to speed it up by more people happening because it's like.
You can get more art, but that one piece won't go faster.
Yeah, it's the whole.
It's one person make a baby. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one person can have a baby faster by adding a second mom.
Yeah, exactly. 10 people can have 10 babies in 9 months, but not one baby.
Yeah, that one baby is still the same amount of time. So that's where we end up. Like the challenges end up shifting. They end up reemerging in different places, right? But this is what we was talking about. Like you want to choose which problem you have and try to shift it into a space where the addressability of your problems doesn't require massive scale changes. So remember that is like in the case of it's very possible to find, an artist to style match and then be able to produce some assets according to some technical specs, right? That's a thing it's a known path. There's freelancers for it. We found Anne, who's been great on our side for that. And like, it's a much easier problem to solve than being like, can we bring I don't even know what, like some kind of programming software architect in here to also assist with the game systems programming side, but also maybe we need a designer too, but I don't even know how to evaluate a designer at this point because it's like intangible shit. So, it's move your problems to where it's an easier solve for scale, basically.
Yeah, and the solve might still be scale, right? But
100%.
As you're saying, it's a more direct, kind of proportional, more easy to manage kind of a scale.
Yeah, well, when you scale up because you have no other avenue.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's no other way to get things faster, like to make the tools faster. Like once you hit that point, then your last resort is adding more people.
Or kind of like more positively, but the same idea is like when that just is actually the best thing. Like
100%.
As in like, if you want more art, you need more artists. There's just that is the best way to get art. And there's all kinds of things you can do to like short up, but the best way to get more art is to like have more artists and make it so that then the tools aren't in the way, right? Mm-hmm. I think this idea of like, Sam was just saying, if you fully control the stack,
whole stack,
which doesn't mean that you like even make the software involved or know how it works and that kind of stuff. It means that you have control over how it's being used and managed and what's being used, and you can change stuff. Like
there's a lot of degrees in there.
Yeah, the control means a lot, but it basically means that you have the ability to basically identify, this is a problem right here, and I can do something about it. I can swap out the software if I don't like control it specifically. I can create new software, or for non-software stuff, because there's tons of things that are solvable just by improved processes and better communication practices and all kinds of stuff, right? Tons of stuff. And if you're in a position where the solution space available to you gets to start with, how does all of this come together rather than, oh shit, it just is this way. It just is this way. So
is what it is.
Our only solution is just to throw people at it. And
let them all deal with the same crap we're all dealing with.
Yeah, as it continues to buckle and deteriorate as you add people to it.
Yeah. So it's been had a lot of interesting reflections about what are we doing here? Why does shaving 15 seconds off of something actually matter? And then you got to see just how all the different ways that can go wrong if you don't aggressively do that. Because it's not just 15 seconds, like we're saying.
Yeah, that's the trick.
And also like that's 15 seconds on top of the dozens and dozens and dozens of other optimizations that we've done to make it so that we don't have to keep cramming more people into the thing. It's pretty interesting. I guess we'll see if we can get one question in.
Yeah,
I think we've got time.
One in.
All right, highest upvoted question from podcast.bscotch.net comes from SnowyBeef, who says, besides Hewgodooko, what was you guys' favorite boss to add to the game? So that's in Crashlands. What was the process of adding it, and how did you think of the idea for it? So before we talk about this, I do want to make it an interesting note that probably most players don't think much about, which is Hugo was actually not very fun to add to the game because Hugo is a required boss.
Yep.
Hugo has to be very, very beatable by everyone.
But still seem like it's challenging so that people feel like it's a boss fight. It's like...
Yeah, it should be challenging, but
not challenging.
Not that challenging. So making the side bosses was a lot more fun because for starters, they didn't scale with the player. So at least on most of the difficulty modes. So the player could technically, if they had too hard of a time with the boss, they could go get gear up and get some better equipment and come back and fight the boss, which meant that we could kind of make those bosses a little bit crazier and do weird stuff that otherwise would maybe be a little bit too intense.
Yeah, and then you could be like, well, if the player can't deal with it, then they can come back later. But with Hugo, it's like he's the thing blocking you to be able to go somewhere to get stronger to come back later. So you can't, we can't play that.
You can't, exactly. Or especially since Hugo is the last boss at the very end. Spoilers. Then like you're saying, there's no more game after that. Like you can't do that. So like for me, I think there's just three. There's three that I liked quite a bit for different reasons. One is the IHO, which is the identified hovering object.
Oh yeah,
which
I can't remember which one it was. Yeah,
which the thing is, like, I don't even remember what the fuck that boss fight is. I just remember chuckling the whole time we made it because we gave it an acronym that's like a UFO and it looks like a UFO, right? As in like it's a flying saucer kind of looking thing. But lore wise, everybody knows what it is. So it is identified.
And it's not flying because
it doesn't fly.
We don't have the verticality on a top down 2D game, so it's just hovering.
Yeah. So there was probably some time where it was a UHO. But then once people figure out what it was, then it just became the IHO. And I love the fact that instead of giving it a name, right, they just were like, yeah, we've identified it. It's identified. We know what it is. It's the IHO. So that cracked me up just because of how stupid it was. The boss whose name shall not be mentioned. I fucking loved because again.
So you don't even care about the boss fights themselves. For you,
it's all about the framing. And then from a development standpoint, the bacon weed fairy was fucking hilarious. Mostly because we got to that boss through a very circuitous path where we had bacon weed in the game, which we were like, haha, funny bacon weed, because it's like meat, but it's a plant. Then we had potted bacon weed. And which you could make a pot and you could plant the bacon weed there and it would regrow and you could harvest it. And I put the tooltip on that one about how, like legends say, if you put a potted bacon weed on your back stoop, the bacon weed fairy comes and steals your teeth, which didn't mean anything at the time. Just a dumbass thing to put into a tooltip.
Well, I believe because your strategy at the time too is like you would just in the evening we had to get tooltips on stuff, so you would just sit down and grab a glass of whiskey and then just
go to town.
Power through, and as you went, you got more.
Put 50 tooltips in. Yeah. So that was one of the unhinged ones where it's like, I mean, so I've been playing Divinity Original Sin 2 lately, and every now and then I see one of their tooltips and I'm like, I get it. Like there's one that's a cooking pot and it's called cooking pot. And you look at it and it looks like a cooking pot, right? So like, what the fuck are you going to say about it?
Yeah.
What are you going to say about it? So the tooltip says, a cooking pot. It's a pot for cooking. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like you're not going to say anything crafty or creative. It's a very obvious thing, right? And so as a developer, you kind of have these points where you're looking at an empty tooltip that you've got to fill in with something, but it's just so fucking obvious that instead you just kind of take it in a different direction. So that's kind of what happened with the potted bacon weed, which then I think that was potted bacon weed was probably in the game for like 6 or 8 months.
It was there very early.
It was there from.
And so like we had in our just kind of brewing in our brains, the bacon weed fairy as like a thing from lore, like from legends in the universe. And we just had to make it real. And it's so hideous.
I love it.
Yeah, and it has what is that? It's just like a teeth mortar thing. I can't really remember much about the specifics of these bosses or how they worked, but the development process,
Yeah, I think my favorites are probably the boss who should not be named, just because of the weirdness of it and how arbitrary we did that. And the spoiler is that the boss's name is just Jessica. But
Yep.
you have to understand that, like, we were trying to think about, like, what would be a name that would feel so alien to the Brubus who don't use J's.
Who are very alien.
Yeah, they're very alien. And so we're like, what about just like a regular ass name? And we're like, oh, Jessica, sounds good. And then that was essentially the joke.
But it was also supposed to, that was like the culmination of the joke was just how regular the name was supposed to be.
Yeah, because they were spending a lot of time about how, no, it's not even necessarily that the thing is so evil. It's just the name is so horrible that they just don't want to utter them.
Don't want to say it.
It is funny player response to that, though, is they thought that that must have been like a dig at
like a personal attack
named Jessica or something like that. And we're like, no, the joke is about the name and how it's just it's a regular name.
It's a great name.
That's the joke.
It sounds nice, you know?
Yeah.
So it was fun. And then Tuma, of course, because it's not every day you get to, like, you know, creatively, fully embody your cancer experience and then set millions of people to
beat the shit out of it.
That was nice. I like that one.
Yeah, and I do remember with Tuma, one of the interesting things in that, because that boss constantly heals.
Yes.
Which was kind of an interesting design decision that we had to kind of think through. Like, what does this mean exactly? Like, if the boss is constantly healing, then it's really like it's an uptime test of like, because if you step away and stop hitting the boss for a moment, then your damage is undone. Any damage you did gets undone. And so we had to figure out how to design that boss in a way that it was really all about like trying to stay in and keep chipping away at it to counteract it, which again, kind of feels a lot like we modeled the boss after cancer. It's a tumor, you know, it just keeps coming back and you've got to just keep beating the shit out of it until it's gone for good, you know? So,
so I think those two are probably my faves outside of the Bake Me Fairy. They're all just weird though. They all got weird shit going on and they were just fun to put together. Cause I think to Seth's point, it's like the context in which they're in is kind of what makes them just fun. Not even the fight, but like the whatever weird bullshit transpired to make them exist is sort of what was fun about it, you know, for us. So
yeah, and boss fights in general, they're a very weird thing to work on as a game designer because again, like they have to be beatable. They have to kind of mean something. I feel like kind of story wise. This is something that I feel a lot in as a WoW player. Is the most memorable boss fights are the ones that get built up over time. Where like there's an antagonist or a villain or a character who
you finally get to go beat the shit out of basically after seeing him. Yeah.
Yeah. So for a lot of people, it was when it was finally getting to confront Arthas, the Lich King, back in like 2009 or whatever, because this character gets established in Warcraft 3. Back in 2002
he's been there for like a decade, basically, before you fight him.
Yeah, and his story is very interesting. You know, he's a paladin who takes up this cursed sword to try to free his people, but ends up succumbing to the curse and becoming the leader of the undead, and he ends up destroying his people instead, you know? And so he kind of like becomes this dark, evil, hollow shell of a person. And then, you know, there's a lot of lore questions, but like, is the guy still in there though? like is he aware of his actions? There was all these kind of like moral quandaries about it as well, you know? And then 8 whatever years later, you know, World of Warcraft is out, that expansion comes out, players, and that entire expansion, which was 2 years long, was leading up to the final raid where you would fight this guy as the ultimate boss of the raid. And so those are the things where, again, like the mechanics of the boss fight are the things you always have to focus on as a designer. Like you got to make sure the boss fight has all these interesting things happening, that it's still beatable, but very challenging. And you want it to like take a while, but not too long. You know, there's all these like mechanical things, but at the end of the day, nobody really gives a shit about those when they're looking back and remembering.
No, it's again, like I feel like bosses are really good encapsulation of like the gestalt design problem, which is like, it's about the whole thing, even though you have to focus on all of these really small moment to moment things. But it's like part of what makes the Bake Me Fairy so memorable is the combination of it being the first boss that most people see. It does a thing that nobody has seen before, which is spray bullets all over the place. And the lead up to it is so weird. You're tracking down this supposedly old Tendrum guy, old Jarnal, who was like a weirdo. He's basically like a hermit, right? And then you find out, spoiler, that it's actually the Bake Me Fairy in disguise. And so it's like, it's a weird whole like encapsulation of that experience.
There's a weird journey that you go on, you know.
Yeah,
and
so
you
remember
remember
boss fights have to have that kind of element to them. Otherwise, they're not. You don't care that it's a boss. It may as well just be a minion, like just a regular schmegular enemy at that point.
Yeah, and that's I think an interesting challenge for what we're doing in Crashlands 2, because it's a story-driven game that's self-encapsulated. Then we get to do that lead up and create that tension and create rivalries between the player and the boss, or you know, whatever the case may be, and that's pretty easy for us to do in that context. Mm-hmm. Something that I've not envied about what like Blizzard has to do with World of Warcraft is about every 6 months they release a new raid, and that raid has 7 to 12 bosses in it, and they have to try to figure out how to make those bosses make players give a shit about fighting those bosses, right? Because in theory, those bosses could just be stick people, you know, that have no connection to anything and have exactly the same mechanics and everything. It would feel like shit because it has to live in the world. You know, it's got to be part of the story. Somehow.
I think there's another trick here though, which is to use the difficulty as the mechanism by which the player has to spend time with the boss, right? So this is what you see in like Dark Souls games, like Elden Ring and stuff, because there's just not a lot of story in terms of lead. You don't know who you're going to necessarily be fighting. You kind of walk into situations and there's like a big horrific thing there. But they do a number of things with the environmental storytelling and stuff where everything feels very embedded, you know, like it is somehow an encapsulation of that place or whatever else. And it is always horrifying in a very special way, like to it, you know, each one is like a very unique fight. But you don't know that they're coming ahead of time typically, right? So what actually ends up making it the story experience for the player is actually the fact that they're so hard, right? Means that you have to fight them for a long time. You get to know them on like an intimate martial artist sort of level of like, I know
the boss is communicating something about why that boss is important through what it's doing in the boss, which is definitely something to do. I think that at least as my understanding of Elden Ring is that it is story light. Yes. It's more backstory, right? Yeah. Of like, here's how you got here. All right, now you're just here. And then you just go out of the world and do stuff. I think the difficulty is if there was something like an Arthas in Elden Ring, then all of the other bosses would feel real fucking weird. Like if there was one boss who had like this really big, deep story and lots of things happening related to it, and then after you defeat that boss, everything changes and there's a bunch of new stories, right? And then like, what are these other bosses doing? They're just kind of there.
That's true. Yeah, so it's a fidelity problem, right? Because it's like you do have, of course, like your final boss. But even then, like you're kind of figuring out what is even happening and who the fuck it is. So when you arrive, you're like, oh, it's that person. But like when I got there, it wasn't super clear to me that that's who I was going to be fighting. You know what I mean? Like, so there's not a lead up even with the finale, right? Of that thing.
Yeah.
There's like one or two characters who get a little more lead up based on like little story moments and stuff. But to your point, like it's very light, you know, because they really can't do too much for any one of them. Otherwise it would be odd.
I think it's also what differentiates, you know, people's interest, right? Because like there's not one way that boss fights are fun, right?
No, absolutely.
I think for
they need to make sense in the context in the game.
Yeah, and I think like I'm definitely on more the camp of like I'm actually not that interested in the challenge part of actually games, period. Like it's, I need to be challenging enough that it's not boring, but I'm mostly interested in just like, what is the game doing? What is it? How does it unfold? What's my moment to moment interactions with this system look like? Right. And it's just like, I like try to play games like Cuphead, which is like just boss fights, no context, you know? Mm-hmm. And I can tell how well done it is when I'm playing it, but my experience with it is just like,
it's not for you.
Why? You know, because like because there's no why. There's just it's a hard boss fight. And it's interesting. That's true. Like the boss fight is interesting, but there's nothing else going on. I don't feel like I have because my reward for a boss fight is like I go do another one. So I'll just keep doing this, I guess, right? But there's no like thread pulling it through. And for a lot of people, that's super fun anyway. It's very compelling to have like the point is.
Yeah, you get
that
to know
it's hard and you have
right?
to learn it, and each challenge is unique and has, you know, kind of differential scale. And So I think knowing who the audience is for the game content, because with
just needs to be consistent.
Because Elden Ring is the same. Its point is that basically, right? Is to make you feel like you're in a world that is kind of cohesive and like has an invisible depth to it. But where the point is still basically to like have these really interesting, challenging, kind of one-off, disconnected combat scenarios, right? But you can't just like transplant, Dark Souls-esque boss fights into some other game because people like Dark Souls. Like, yeah, sure. Some people.
Dark Souls players like Dark Souls.
Dark Souls players like Dark Souls. And those players might also like your game, but what about the other players, right? Are they going to like all of your hard as fuck boss fights that are there?
It's about understanding like what it is that your players are trying to get out of the bosses in your game.
Yeah. So I think Cuphead has actually a really interesting example of that because but it's very successful. The game's really good. But to your point, because of the aesthetic, it's one of those things where you actually want to be able to see and experience all the bosses because they are so cool.
Yeah, they're really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, something like Elden Ring, it's like the bosses are cool, but they're all grotesque in their own way, right? And they all do like very spooky, weird shit. So what's really interesting about them is almost purely just fighting him, if that makes sense. Like you can't see all of them oftentimes even because they're scale and stuff. So there's like a difference in feel to those where you feel like in Cuphead, when I went to play it, I wanted to see all the bosses because
I did too, but it was so hard to beat each one that wasn't sufficient,
I want to see him, but I don't want to see him that bad.
Yeah. Versus Elden Ring, I was like, I don't even know how to put it. It's like, I just know that some vaguely disturbing shit is going to attack me at some point, but I get no context about it. So, or like I only have context. I don't have anything about what it is. So I can't even wish for finding a thing, if that makes sense. I'm just sort of.
You're just along for the ride.
I'm just here to survive. Yeah.
So in a way, I feel surprised, right? Because it is. The shape of the surprise, but that's it, right?
Yep.
Versus
you're just like, what crazy boss is about to pop out next?
Yeah. And when while I'm just doing other stuff, right? So like at any given moment, like suddenly you could find yourself in a horrifying boss
and
fight.
You do. Yeah.
And Cuphead is a much more structured kind of a thing where it's like, you go to the boss fight location on the map, and now you're going to fight a boss and set out. Now the surprise isn't when you're going to do, or if or whatever. It's now that I'm in the loading screen for this boss fight. What am I gonna? What's it gonna be like?
Yeah. Well, there's also a way to fuck it up, which is like not understanding that context and why it is that players care about these things. So for me, one of the most interesting, I'll call it a failure of making a compelling boss fight or a compelling villain, was what happened in WoW in the Shadowlands expansion, which was the one before the current one, where they made this character called the Jailer, who basically is he's sort of a godlike being who lives in super hell, and he's in this place
called like a bad sci-fi,
So they were like, there's an afterlife that has like all these different realms within it, and when people die, their spirit gets chosen to go to one of these different realms. But then there's a place called the Maw, which it's basically super hell. It's like souls go there only the worst souls go there to be tortured forever, right? And at first I'm like, why though? Like that never made sense to me about hell to begin with. Like why go through all that effort to torture them forever? I don't understand what's happening.
Harvesting screams like Monsters Inc.
Yeah, there's no gain to it. They just go there and they're just trapped there forever and they're tortured. So this character, the Jailer, is the one who oversees the Maw. Again, I don't know why he would need to, because nothing can escape it and things just go there to be. Anyway, so he's essentially like super Satan, right? But that on its own was already way too fucking weird and disconnected from anything the players cared about, right? Of like, all right, so there's this guy in super hell.
But he seems like he's just kind of doing the thing he's been doing.
He's just there. And so then they had to add this extra layer where they're like, oh, well, actually, the thing is that because of some other stuff that happened, the machinery of the afterlife is broken and all the souls are going to super hell now instead of where they're supposed to go, right? And it's like, okay, well, that's bad.
Isn't there what do we do between super hell and the rest of the places so he could be like, oh, sorry, let me just
it's like we're just a bunch of regular people. I don't understand what
he says. Like he's gonna be overworked real quick, working on that torture and can't torture everybody. I don't think that's just
And so then ultimately what they
you're
did.
You're playing a game where, as a player, when you die, you come back to life, right?
Yeah.
And you're supposed to be like,
oh,
no, I don't want to go to super hell because that's what would happen now, except that it can't happen.
Except it can't happen. Yeah. And so, and also like you can die. Like, so that whole expansion was like you go to the afterlife.
And you could die in there.
And you can get killed in there, but it's fine. It just works the same as normal. Like you just come back and it's so again, like they did this stuff, but then also like that was already so abstract and weird. And like the problem
it's potentially a cool idea for a different kind of game or for just a story, right? Or a movie or something, right? But in the context of a game with the mechanics,
it just fucks everything up.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And on top of that, like this wasn't already players were like, this opens up way too many fucked up questions about the world, like everything. But then on top of that, so players weren't really that psyched about this villain, right? Because also the idea of like just 20 just regular people coming together and fighting essentially a god who's been alive since the beginning of time, who oversees super hell, right? It's like, what are we doing here?
And maybe it's fought other gods in the past to like do this. Yeah, like the scale mismatches kind of.
Yeah, so that already is so disconnected from what the player expects to do that it doesn't even make sense. But then, and also the problem this villain is creating, where the villain is just like, I purposely rigged super hell so that I could get all the souls, so that I could remake the cycle of life and death. Okay, so that was his motivation, and we're all like,
why?
Like, is that good?
What does it even mean?
Is that good? Is it bad though? I don't even know what's going to happen after that. So again, really weird motivation. So they kept trying to up the stakes to make players care. So they retconned almost every story in the Warcraft universe so that this guy, the jailer, was behind all of it. Okay. So they essentially robbed all these past characters of their original backstories and motivations and agency, including Arthas. And they were like, yeah, no, the jailer did that. The jailer did all of that. And so the players were like, I hate this. I don't.
Can someone hit the stop button on whatever's happening?
So collectively, the community just, and then like at the end of the day, we just go fight this guy, and it's just a regular boss fight because it has to be, right? Because
every boss fight is a boss fight. That's the thing.
Yeah. So it culminates in just like a fart. It's like, all right, it's done now.
Yep.
And all this damage is done. Nobody gave a shit. The lore gets dismantled. And so collectively, the community has just kind of been like, okay, we're just going to pretend like none of that happened.
Oh,
like, we're just going to. So there are ways to fuck it up real bad.
It's very easy to fuck up. I think to your point, it's like it's if you're choosing the wrong approach to the buildup, because a boss fight is just a mechanics test. It's the same as the rest of the game. So
what was them saying? Like a boss fight the players need to care, and there needs to be stakes. It's like what's higher stakes than like rebuilding the fabric of the universe, right?
Well,
I think that's
the
way
problem with stakes-based sort of storytelling, right? Is that if the stakes have to keep on getting bigger forever, it's like late-stage capitalism. It's not possible.
It can't grow forever.
And as it gets towards
Marvel's
that
multiverse,
exactly, as it gets towards that tail end, it just starts to make so little.
It just doesn't make any fucking
and it becomes so abstract. Because I think it's like with the Marvel movies, like it's so like towards the end. It became like I couldn't care. Like as soon as the multiverse came into play, I was like, oh, so there's just a billion multiverses, and so they get destroyed all the time, I guess. And we're just
anything that happens to any character didn't happen in a different universe, so it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, so I guess who cares about any of this? That's kind of where we are.
Raise the stakes so high that the stakes disappear.
They go away.
Yeah, once you've got time travel and multiverses or multiverses, nothing matters anymore.
Yeah. And if you're gonna do if you're gonna go all the way in like, because Thanos was like his motivations were insane and so on, but his whole like I'm gonna just like kill half of all things, like ignoring the rationale for it, right? That's a pretty good, very far, far concrete, because you can also like you can just imagine like half of everything I know is gone, right?
Not plants though, just humans, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
I guess.
We don't have to get into that.
half of all people, and maybe I don't know, animal. I don't know what the threshold.
So technically, if half of all things, it's mainly ants that are getting killed. You know what I mean?
But you can kind of imagine the consequence, though, right? But if the stakes are like the world will be destroyed and just be gone, right? Or
reality will be reshaped.
Yeah, exactly. Or even crazier, reality's reshaped. Or you were now never born. Or
I got
the
no
universe will
experience.
implode. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I can't do anything with that. Probably who cares? It's probably fine. If
The stakes can get so high that you hit an integer overflow on stakes and it goes right back to zero.
I think instead of stakes, I think you want to make it personal. You make it personal. I think that's the trick to me, is like what happens over the course of an Elden Ring boss fight where you're just getting your ass kicked is it becomes a personal
It's a grudge match.
And what happens in the case of like a build up to a boss fight that you're going to win because for accessibility purposes, we need you to kill this boss to move on. We make it personal by virtue of the story. The stakes are not the focus. Okay. Cause a great boss fight can have literally no stakes, but it has to be personal. Otherwise it may as well
the stakes just have to be tangible to you in some way, right? It's like otherwise.
Why did we have Hewgodooko?
I don't know.
In Crashlands, why did we have Hugo show up and occasionally blow up a resource that you're trying to harvest?
And then make fun of you. Yeah.
It's because at the end of the day,
we did that to make you not like him because we were like, we need you to fight him.
Yeah, like Hugo is like, oh, I'm going to do a bunch of bullshit. I'm stealing your packages. I'm going to I'm going to take over the planet, right? But
none of it really matters that much. And he is funny, when he's doing it.
He's a sassy douchebag, you know? And so it's like, we want you to, okay. You could say like, I'm going to make this my problem. I'm going to save the world, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, like your real motivation is this guy's just kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And that's all you need.
And that's really what it's all about. Yeah. It just needs to be you got to feel something. You got to really be like, I want to take this I want to take this person down.
I have to take this personally because how dare.
Yeah, exactly. That's what really matters.
And it doesn't. And there's like, and you could still have like major stakes and big ones, but
I'm
getting away from this
irrelevant
idea that they have
personal.
they have to somehow be personal, and the idea that you can have infinitely ratcheting stakes is just nonsense. You can't do it.
Yeah, you just can't. So keep that in mind. If you're designing boss fights for your game, trying to do that stuff, make it personal. Don't go overboard. That's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa DaCosta, for putting the podcast together. And thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate, and links to the podcast archives. And if you haven't yet, head on over to Steam, give Crashlands 2 a wish list, check out the demo, which is still up for some amount of time. Probably not a lot more time. So if you haven't checked it out yet.
We'll probably be shutting that down in like a week or two. Just FYI.
So some short amount of time. So get in there, play that demo, give it a wish list. That'll help boost it for a launch and all that stuff. And we really appreciate it. And as always, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.